Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the People's Questions. Before I get started, I would just like to announce the winner of last week's contest, and the winner was Spectral Shadow. And by now, he's probably has already received his $20 from PlayStation Money, and hopefully, he's spending it well. I actually got. Sorry about that, it's my neighbor's dog. And I actually got one particularly interesting question from a good friend of mine, but I'm going to save that one for last. So, without further ado, let's get started. Axman07 wants to know, what's the most embarrassing moment of my life? Okay, I had to think about this one for a little bit, but if I really had to pick an overall embarrassing moment, I would probably have to pick my first trip to Disneyland. Okay, the story's quite long, so we'll try to shorten. Basically, there's this one ride at Disneyland at the time. I think I was like 10 years old, and it was one of this like futuristic car rides, and it kind of went around the park. I was in line with my mom and older sister, while my little sister and my dad were off doing something else. And I think we were in line for like an hour and a half. And by the time we got to the actual front line, I had to go to the bathroom, and it was just so bad that I could not just get on the ride it out, and then run. So I decided I was going to run to the bathroom. Unfortunately, I didn't know where it was, and I didn't quite make it to the bathroom. So by the time I got back to my mom and my sister, they had already went on the ride, and they saw that I had wet myself. And then my dad and little sister show up, and my dad looks at me, and we walk over to this little fountain. It's like, I'm not sure if you guys have been to Disneyland, but there's actually it's kind of like a globe, and around it are a bunch of fountains that shoot up water. And he says, "Brian, go push the ball." And okay, so me being 10 years old, I don't quite understand what he means. So I'm dodging all this water that's shooting around at me, and I push the ball for, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. And then I walk back to my dad, and he just shakes his head, and we leave, and I didn't quite understand his point. And later on, I found out what he meant by "go push the ball" was "Brian, go get wet," so that it didn't look like I wet myself. But heck, that's kind of the thing you need to know about me. Don't use acknowledgments or whatever. Just tell me what to do, and I'll go do it. So I suppose it's like my most embarrassing moment I can think of was not knowing to get wet. But heck, what can you expect from a 10-year-old? So that would be my most embarrassing moment that I can think of. Let's see. Omega Angel wants to know, why do I think Square Enix will not stop making Final Fantasy games? Well, this is just a common practice of any game company. They're not going to stop making Final Fantasy games because they make money. And if a product makes money, there's no need to stop it. However, personally, I believe that they really need, in terms of the actual, the main series of games, I think they need to stop, because it's just, what's the word? It's just really kind of odd to have so many games. There has to be a point where you need to stop, because then it just gets ridiculous. I mean, can you imagine, can all of you guys imagine 20 years from now when we all have kids and our kids want to play, I don't know, Final Fantasy 32? I mean, just listen to that. Final Fantasy 32. I mean, that just sounds ridiculous and stupid. So, I legitimately do believe that they need to stop the Final Fantasy series. Now, I'm not saying they need to stop all Final Fantasy games, but just in terms of the main series, it just really needs to stop. Because, I mean, just like the Bond films. I mean, you have 23 Bond. Well, I think the 23rd one's coming out. You have 22 Bond films, and only 2 of them are connected. And you could say that the ones between GoldenEye and Die Another Day are connected, because there's very few things that actually link them, but you can't necessarily say they're sequels. And do I think they'll ever stop making James Bond movies? Probably not, because we're always going to deal with a different Bond and it's for a different group of people, and they kind of view it in multiple ways. You could say the same thing about Final Fantasy, but I just think that in terms of games, it's like I just like to see it stop, just personally. Who's my Fatality 100 wants to know who's my favorite hero. Well, if you've seen any of my previous videos, you would probably already know this, but my favorite hero of all time is Batman. I like Batman because his greatest weapon is really his mind, and I admire that. Yes, he's not super strong, and he's not super fast, he's not immune to bullets, he can get hurt, but what gives Batman the greatest advantage over any hero, at least for me, is the fact that he's a real human character who actually has to deal with human problems. And as I've said before, why I'm not really too interested in the Avengers is it's kind of more impressive to me when you see an average, everyday guy suffer such great loss, yet turn that loss into a strength. And not only that, he is a normal man able to do extraordinary feats that you wouldn't think a normal person could do. This is something you expect Wonder Woman or Superman to do, but no, he can do it just as effective as they can. I mean, when you think of these other heroes, they have handicaps. Superman's immune to bullets, so he's super strong, he's super fast, he has all these handicaps that kind of make his job easier. And when it comes to the other heroes, they can afford to make all these major mistakes because, they're difficult to kill. As for Batman, he can't really afford to make mistakes because, he would easily die. And that's kind of what makes me admire him more than any other hero, is his ability to think thoroughly, and regardless of how big the challenge is, he is willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done. And that is something I respect fully. And the last question I have today is from a good friend of mine, and Alpha Spirit Wolf, and he wants to know, will I try I'm sorry, man, I'm not even gonna call it that. I'm gonna call it Final Damnation 2, sorry. Will I try Final Damnation 2 even though I'm going to rant on Final Damnation 1? Okay. No. I will say that I'm not going to say that Final Damnation, which I'm calling it Final Fantasy 13 Part 2, I'm not going to say that it's a bad game because I have not played it, and I'm not going to play it. But the fact that Part 1 was just so incredibly bad, there's absolutely no reason for me to try the second one. And you're probably saying, oh, but they fixed all the problems that was in the first one. No, sorry. Not gonna happen. The game was just too bad that any storyline involving that particular story is not even worth my time. I mean, even if you tell me for some bullshit excuse that it's going to somehow link up to Versus, which I seriously doubt since it's made by a completely different company who I personally trust, but the fact that this game is made by the same people that make the absolute worst game I've ever played, why the hell do you think I would even give them the satisfaction of an even minute of my time playing their garbage? So, as for that, I'm not going to try it out, have no intention on playing it, and that's where I stand. Now, for those of you out there wondering what is taking me so long to get my major Final Fantasy Final Damnation review out, I'm kind of contemplating on whether I should actually break one disc or two discs, or whether or not I should just go out and buy both games and then destroy them. Now, many of my friends have said, hey Brian, maybe you should just film just breaking a disc, don't break the discs in the discuss. Like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Sorry, if I announce I will be breaking one or two discs of Final Damnation, I'm going to do it, because trust me, just personally, it wouldn't feel right to me to break a fake disc just for the viewer's sake. Sorry, I'm going to break it, and I'm going to feel good about it. And that ends this episode of the People's Questions. Next Friday, I will be posting the second contest, in which I will be offering another $20 PlayStation money. And I promise you that the next question will be significantly harder. If you have any questions you would like me to answer here on the show, please post them down in the comments or send them to my PlayStation Network. And as always, please like, comment down below, and subscribe up top to keep track of me. And as always, I will see you next time.